Starting now. All right, we're live. It's happening.
Beautiful.
All right, everyone, welcome to Friday Night on a Sunday, the only Vagabond chef podcast out there. I'm joined tonight by local celebrity, the husband of recent winner of the Summit Cup, right? The Lightning Birds.
That's your claim to fame, I'm a hockey husband.
That's right. So let's see the jersey there, Johnny.
Yep, right here.
Very nice.
I'll turn it around.
That's awesome.
Yep, I'm showing my colors. We were in Johnstown for 2 days. They played the Pittsburgh Puffins and they played the Hagerstown Mayhem.
That's awesome.
And they won their game today 7-2.
Very nice. A decided victory.
Decided victory. or you could say that they kicked their ass.
Yeah, well, that too. And is this the first year that they've been doing it here in Wheeling?
Yes. Yeah. This
cool.
is their first. This is their inaugural season. It took off. Had a lot of people coming to West Banco to watch them play. So hopefully, I'd like to see a full arena next year.
Yeah.
I think the girls deserve it. They play their hearts out, and it is entertaining. We have a good time every game they have. And they are good.
Well, I'm sure. And I love sports at that level because you get to see the look on people's faces and you hear the hits, and, hockey at that level is a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you get in a chirping mode there like Shorzy, or do you have to be a good guy because you're a hockey husband?
To behave myself. I'm not allowed to yell at the refs because the refs, apparently in hockey, they'll throw you out like right now.
Is that right?
Because I'm from a basketball mindset where I'd jaw the refs the whole time.
Yeah.
My dad refereed games of mine, and he'd throw technicals at me because I'd never stop talking. And so I've been told to mind myself and not say too much. My wife's the only one that can cap me.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, thank God for her.
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
I'm sure. So, Johnny Haught is a local Wheeling celebrity. Most of you, if you know of Johnny, know of him from his fighting career of 20 years now?
Yeah. I've been punching people and getting punched for 20 years.
And doing a lot of really cool, wacky shit for local charities, like running a marathon backwards. What's some of the other crazy stuff?
Oh, it was only a half marathon.
Oh, that's all. It
was just only 13 miles on my bare feet through paved streets.
Barefoot and backwards?
No, I did
did
the backwards separately. That was the next year. And then another time I pulled a 45-pound sled through 6 miles.
Jeez.
Including Wheeling Hill, which is fairly rough to begin with, but when you're pulling weight behind you, it's even rougher.
Yeah, well, I would imagine so. That begs the question, why would you do that to yourself?
Well, that one was for the Veterans 10K, and I did it to raise money for the Fisher House in Pittsburgh that helps house families of people that are at UPMC, veterans that are at UPMC, so that they don't have to be away from their families while they go through surgeries, recoveries, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really good organization.
Nice.
And then running barefoot, I raised money for United Way's Lace Up for Kids. So I bought shoes for kids by running barefoot.
That's awesome. Well, you do a lot with your fighting career. You do a lot for charities in the area, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. Part of this podcast for me is to interact with folks that I see a lot on a regular basis. I see your gorgeous mug 4 times a week for almost 3 years now. We've been working together, and I thought it would be a really cool thing to sit down with you and chat with a live audience and just kind of see where it goes. And the hook here is that you have also worked in the service industry, but in a very different capacity than I have as a cook or as a server. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
I was autonomous of the service industry. While I worked in the service industry, I was not in the service industry. I bounced for better part of a decade. I found with my reputation, my quick thinking, and my ability to de-escalate situations, that I was really good at it. And but I wasn't there with a smile on my face. I didn't think the customer was always right. It was my job to keep order, not make you happy, so it was firsthand look. I got as close to it as you can without being in it, so that I could watch it. And I'd look at the bartender sometimes. I'm like, how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
How do you take that from somebody? How do you come in here with a smile on your face every night? Because
Right.
I can tell you, it only took a few years before I walked in with a scowl on my face. And the madder I looked, the more everybody behaved, because I already looked pissed off, and they weren't trying to make it worse.
See, we do a similar thing in the kitchen, but usually it's only the servers that bear the brunt of that. So I think it's
Yeah,
probably a little more fair when you're out front dealing with customers.
yeah, yeah. And again, psychology of basic human nature. It's really easy to keep a crowd controlled. And again, just speaking with respect, I've said that multiple times lately. If you speak to people with respect, and they come back with anything else, then they're the asshole, and nobody's trying to be an asshole.
Yeah. Right.
So, if you just reiterate to the person, I never came to you with anything but respect. Why are you saying this to me?
Mm-hmm.
And they usually will back off.
Yeah. So
Now
of
there's
that
been
time doing all that, how many times did it actually come into a physical altercation versus being
I
able to
might have
de-escalate?
I might have touched 10 people the whole time I bounced.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, for the most part, bouncers that have to touch people most of the time, you're either working in a crazier situation, or you kind of want to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, I fight all day.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the bar to work, I wanted everybody to behave. I really didn't want to have to do anything. I didn't want to have to get in the middle of anything. So, I wasn't looking to get into a fight.
Yeah.
So when it presented itself, I'd generally talk it down.
Right. Right. Right.
Whereas another bouncer might grab a guy by the neck and throw him through the door.
Now, what was a big takeaway for you, kind of witnessing that? You've got like a ringside seat of the controlled chaos of a bar restaurant kind of scenario. Like, did anything really stand out as an experience? Or you said how the bartenders had to deal with unruly customers. Was there anything else that you really took
Well,
note of?
it's just a matter. It's not necessarily. It was my job to deal with unruly customers. It's just some of the chippy disrespect, and just to be okay, and to watch the same people do the same stupid stuff over
Right.
and over and every day. And my big takeaway in the whole thing is it comes down to the owner.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got a good owner, then from the top down, things start to work better.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, is on the same page. It ends up being a team. If at all an owner thinks that everything's running smooth enough that they just walk away, it will not go well, because there's always a rat that'll get you.
Right.
There's always
Right.
somebody that's going to steal. There's only somebody that's going to take advantage. And then it's up to everybody else to, like, kind of police the situation, where the owner should be the one doing it.
Right. Right. So do you think it was more your experience, or your reputation, or your demeanor that landed you in that position?
Well, I mean, it had to do with my reputation, because the bar owner that I first worked for knew my ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
And she had opened the bar back up after. It was, the bar I'm talking about was basically Roadhouse for my entire 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd watch the same dudes fight three times in a week, and they'd still be allowed to come in there.
Yeah.
And so it got closed down, and she reopened it. And about a month after she had reopened, there had been that seedy part come back in.
Mm-hmm.
And she stopped me while I was in there one day. She goes, "Hey, do you want to bounce in here?" And I had never even thought about bouncing. And quite honestly, with 2 young kids and all that stuff, I was like, yeah, I could use the money,
Right.
and
Right.
then, I've, my understanding of psychology helped a lot. My reputation, everybody in this valley knows all I do is train to fight people for
Yeah.
20 years. Like, if you do anything for 20 years, you probably be pretty good at it.
One would
And,
hope.
especially in fighting, if you're
Right.
not good in fighting, you'll quit.
Yeah. Right.
That or you're real stupid,
So I know you were always an athletic guy. I know you played baseball when you were younger, and did you play baseball in college too, or just when
Yes.
you were in high school?
Yeah,
Okay.
I played 3 sports at an all-star level, and then I went to college for football and baseball.
Okay. So you had a strong athletic background. When did that transition into, I think I want to get punched in the face?
Really, I want to get punched in the face didn't happen till I was in my career for 5 years. Like, I was fighting people for 5 years with no want to get hit whatsoever. And if you get 1,000 punches thrown at you, some of them are going to land. And
Right.
over time, you get conditioned to getting hit. But to answer your question, I went to college to play sports. I had done nothing but play sports my whole life. And my parents put me in everything you could put me in because I'm hyperactive. So I
Mm-hmm.
was in the band, I was in the Cub Scouts, I was in choir, I was in everything you could be involved in, including sports. So I didn't have free time until after collegiate sports.
Mm-hmm.
Once I had free time, we found out I'm not good with free time. I'm bound to get in trouble or do, something, especially in my early 20s. I was, the Travis Clark and I talked about it when we first started training together. Like, it was fighting or jail.
Yeah.
Like, I never had a situation where I was on my own to make my own decisions and that I didn't have practice tomorrow or a coach telling me that I needed to, do the right thing and stay on my path. I've got a chaotic brain,
Right.
and I have a compulsive personality. So I just compulsively got into fighting.
Well, that's probably
And
another way that our careers line up just a little bit, because the kitchen's full of misfits, and people that without a little bit of direction may end up in the less desirable parts of society as well. So that may be some similarity between the ring and the back of the house.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's a ragtag group of people. I mean, fighters, you've got to realize that you're standing in a room full of alpha males.
Right.
Like, and I hate that term but it's the term for, aggressive, dominant type personalities. And in that, I'm sure in the kitchen you have the same thing. Personalities
Oh yeah.
clash.
Oh yeah.
Gyms don't stay together forever.
Right.
Very rarely, even the biggest gyms in the world, big jujitsu gyms that have over quarantine got stuck together for too long, and they split up and made 2 different gyms.
Yeah.
My gym the gym that I started out in, we've been split up for 10 years now. And it was just a matter of differing philosophies and,
Right. Right. Yeah, and we
some
definitely
people.
find that in the kitchen too. There's got to be a pecking order. There's kind of got to be, a structure. That's the hierarchy, or the brigade system in the back of the house, where everyone knows who's responsible for what, and that's the only way things can come together and kind of gel.
That's the problem with the fight aspect of it, is there is no hierarchy. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks they're the man.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be the best in the gym.
Right.
And everybody thinks that they're more important. And,
Yeah.
it should be. Now, my gyms run, we're a team, we're a family. We only get better together, and we only succeed if everybody succeeds.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned from what I came from. I learned how to coach. I learned how to coach better than my coaches. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like parenting. This. You love your parents. I love my parents, but you want to do better than they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And if you're not trying to do better than they did, what are you doing?
Right.
Things that you wish you'd had when you were younger that,
Right. Sure.
you try to give your kid. Well, that's the same thing as a coach that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that they never have to ask me, am I ready to fight?
Hmm.
They never have to wonder if I think they're doing enough.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily get that reassurance as much. Now,
When
my
you were
coach
coming
was a
up.
different, yeah, he was a different guy than me.
Right.
Like I'm a nurturing type of person, and I'm very hands-on with everything I do.
That's awesome. We got to say hi to a few people in the chat right now. We got Father Michael, Jessica Dans, Robin Gump. Hi, guys. Thanks so
What's
much
up,
for
guys?
joining us. We got 13 people watching us right now. So that's super cool. You all apparently are super bored on your Sunday nights. Sit around and watch us just talk crap. But I do want to touch back on that kind of ego part of what both of us do, Johnny. And I find that to be something that's really interesting about you, because it cannot be said that you have a small ego.
It's amazing that we fit in the valley with it.
And I think you
Yeah.
may be your own number one fan. What's up, Oscar? How are you doing, my brother? Good to see you, man. However, what I really appreciate about you is that you do not allow yourself to be defined by your own love of yourself, or maybe to try and put it better, like you have a humility without being humble. It's really interesting. You're a much more complex guy than one would expect the dude with the rainbow mohawk that gets punched in the face all the time would actually be.
Well, you got to walk a fine line. I like to always be almost on the edge of going too far. Like where in the way that I joke around, and the way that I act, and the way that I talk about myself, my fighters, all those things. Like, yeah, I have a really, really big ego, but it's just because I enjoy being me.
Yeah.
I've you know I like my life. I like the way that it's set up, and the people around me encourage me to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody seems to think it's a bad thing. If it was, then I'd be cast out of society. I'd have to go live on an island by
Yeah.
myself. you
Well,
know
it's been a really amazing time getting to know you over the past few years. And I've shared with you and other folks that there have been many times when work's been super, super tough, and I've been exhausted, and I don't know that I would have drugged my ass into the gym if it was with anyone else other than you. And I do always feel like I have to be really careful about giving you compliments, because I don't want your
well,
head to explode.
you're not going to make it any worse than it already is. Trust me, I'm about to take 3 guys down to demolish people in Parkersburg next weekend. My ego this week's already going to be over the edge.
Well, let's spend a little bit of time on that. What's going on in Parkersburg, and who's going down there with you?
Okay, so I've got D Turner fighting for the 178 boxing title in the Doghouse Promotions, and then I have Stephen Carney. He's fighting at 185, and after, I'm pretty sure he's going to knock this dude clean out, and after that we'll be asking for a title.
Mm-hmm.
They already had the current title holder for the 165 division fighting, or I would have had Richard Violet fighting him. So we got him another opponent. Now, as soon as he demolishes this guy, we'll be asking for that title as well. We're planning a statewide takeover. We've got all these people downstate forgetting we're up here.
Yeah.
The Appalachian Boxing Association somehow has negated the fact that there are fighters in the Northern Panhandle. They've got rankings, they've got titles, they're having people fight. None of our people are even evaluated for this situation.
Well,
And so
that's
what we're going to do is we're going to go to each show. We're going to put everybody down until they have to pay attention,
right.
because nobody in this state is training the way that we train. Nobody in this state has the integrity for their gym that we have. So I put everybody in on notice for the last few weeks. I've said it multiple times in many different places. We are going to take over the state.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's been a state long problem of the being in the Panhandle. I think we tend to ignore a lot of what goes on in the larger part of the state, and the larger part of the state tends to forget that we exist up here. And it's
Well, I
really
mean,
ironic. What's
If
that?
they weren't still working on dial up, we'd
Well,
they'd know more about what
there are
we're doing.
ton of internet problems around. But I just think it's funny how our state capitol floated up and down the river for all those years, trying to figure out where in the heck it was going to be located.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like we're still fighting that battle in a lot of ways.
Well, I'm going to be loud, and I'm going to be, if I got to be obnoxious about it, because I'm over it. They've been doing it my entire career, and I'm not going to watch my guys go through it too. That it was known that we didn't, like, guys like me. I'm a point fighter. I like to spend the entire time in the ring. I worked on my cardio, I worked on my technique, I worked on my ability to outlast everybody. So I went to distance with everybody I fought, whether I could knock them out or not.
Right.
And guys down there, promoters down there, be like, when are we going to get you down here to fight? I said, you're not. I'm not coming down there to beat the brakes off a dude, and then you take away a victory by, judging against me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. It's not right. And this whole Appalachian Boxing Association thing has really bothered me. And I've contacted the promoter multiple times, and I said, why are we not on these rankings? Because I know that most of the people in those rankings, my guys will knock out no problem.
Yeah.
We've had a tour of the state for the last 3 months of us knocking people out. Just cold.
I think that your loyalty to your fighters is admirable, and it's something that we feel in the gym all the time. Kind of the investment that you give. You ask for a lot, but you give even more, I think, from your fighters. And I think that's something that comes out in your life in general. Like, you're a good athlete, you're naturally gifted, and you've got a good head on your shoulders, and you decided to apply that in certain ways. But nobody said, hey, you need to utilize these skills to benefit these other people. I mean, most folks are kind of just in it for themselves, and they don't worry about making an impact on their community or raising other people up. And that seems to be something that's super important to you.
Well, again, when I was coming up, my coach wasn't necessarily as hands-on. I found that a lot of times, like, I'd be sparring with guys and they would be making simple mistakes that I could fix. And instead of me just beating them up all the time, I want them to give me a challenge. I want the challenge. I want somebody to be able to press me to where I feel uncomfortable too. And, through that, I understood that all these years that people told me I should be a teacher, I took that as you should work with kids. And I didn't want to do that. And then I got into fighting and found that I could relay that information. I could teach that technique. I understood it in a different way. And that was what I could teach. Now, my students are my kids. I love these guys. Like, and I'm providing for them a way to do something that's going to make them and the people around them proud. D. Turner, especially. D. Turner's whole life changed with fighting. And 2 months in, he looked at me as he was leaving the gym. He said, I'm going to be one of your best fighters. And at that time, I did not believe that at all. And he knows that me, I don't pull punches. When we talk about this, I say, yeah, I didn't believe you at all.
Right.
But I'm telling you, he's put in the time, the effort. He's done everything that I asked of him. And a lot of it is they're just trying to compare themselves to when I was in my career. Stephen Carney texted me this morning and said, I just ran 2 miles in 10 minutes. I said, that's where I was when I was fighting full time. I said, that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And like, that's incredible. Like, 5-minute miles is, not to be laughed at.
Right.
So like these guys are only trying to be, we're only trying to beat yesterday's us.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not trying to compete with each other. We're not trying to compete with really anybody. That was always my mentality when I ran races. I don't care if I come in 10th or 200th. If I improved my time, that's the only thing that matters.
Right. Well, you mentioned 2 things there. I kind of want to hear a little bit more about, Johnny. One of them is, and we'll save this for second, but you mentioned wanting to be uncomfortable, and I'm curious to hear, when was the last time you were uncomfortable? But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about your training regimen, because I know some of the crazy shit you used to do. And I think it would be really good for everyone watching who's less familiar with you to get an idea of what training used to look like for you, like a standard day when you were in full on fighting mode.
Okay, so when I was in full on fighting mode, I did Monday through Friday. I always kept Saturday and Sunday off. A lot of it had to do with the fact that I bounced on weekends as well. But I needed to, with once you hear what I was doing, my body needed 2 days. My body had to have 2 days.
Mhm.
And so like get up in the morning, and it's on an easy day, 4 miles. On a harder day, it's anywhere from 8 to 12 miles in the morning. And that's on the hills of Bethlehem. That's all over the valley, mainly finding major hills, 29th Street and things like that. Then I would go to the gym, or I would go to yoga and then go to the gym. And I'd do an hour of hot yoga, and then I'd go to the gym and do my technique work and strength and conditioning. Then, especially during the summer, I would take my kids to the pool, and I would tread water in the deep end for 2.5 hours while they played. And I called that my off time. And then I would go back to the gym at 4, teach my classes, spar. Then I would do cardio, or I would run over to the Y and I would teach their advanced cardio class, which I would do every class that I taught. I did it with the students.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if I had 15 minutes in between getting to the Y and my class, I'd probably get on the treadmill and run 2 or 3 miles. And it wasn't anything, especially when I do like 3 back-to-back personals. I'd have everybody running 5-6 miles at a time. I'd take
Yeah.
3 people in a row. I'd drop somebody off from 6 miles, run 6 miles with the next person, drop them off, run 6 miles with the next person. And quite honestly, all I was trying to do was just see what my body would take.
Yeah.
And see where the limit was, and I didn't find it.
This is how you can crush cheeseburgers all day and drink beer and you don't have a gut.
And that was the thing. People used to come up to me and they're like, "So what's your diet?" And I said, "You can't eat what I eat." You to this day, people can't eat what I eat.
Yeah.
I sparred 4 times in 24 hours between Thursday and Friday, including the end where all of my fighters come in at 5 o'clock for their last spar before their fight. And believe me, these guys want to beat me up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe you.
They're trying like hell. They all want to be the one that wins the round against me. And I haven't lost, especially in training, I haven't lost a round in a decade.
Yeah.
If not way more than that. I'd like the last, and to get to your next question, the last time I felt uncomfortable in the ring is I got my rib dislocated in a fight. And it wasn't, I wasn't uncomfortable because of the fight. I wasn't uncomfortable because of the opponent. I was uncomfortable because my rib was dislocated. I've been in the ring and I've sparred and trained with some of the best in this region. I've trained with UFC champions. I've trained with boxing champions. If somebody was going to knock me out or kill me, it had already been done by now.
Yeah. Well,
again,
you might get old
20
and slow.
years, 20 years of perfecting something. I've got a doctorate in fighting.
At some point, there's got to be a degradation, right? Though at some point, you're not going to be able to do what you do.
You would think that eventually I'll get old, but it hadn't happened yet, and I'm not planning on it.
Robin Gump says it's an inspiration, and we're also joined by Marty Medovic and Stacy Bell in the chat, so they're all saying hi. What's up?
What's up?
Okay, so you're doing a lot with your fighting career. You've transitioned into coaching. You now have the Ohio Valley MMA, which is that correct? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, you had a look on your face. I wanted to make sure. That's just your face.
That's how I look at you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe we should go into some of I'll start telling some dad jokes here in a second. We can see what really happens. And you're training 5 days a week. You've got fighters, going to fight. You're looking to go and take titles. So where does that lead you up to? Like what's the next year look like for the gym? Where are you heading? Where are you taking these guys?
Well, again, like I said, we're staging this takeover. We're going to start going to every show in the state. We're going to start knocking people out. We're going to make it to where it's undeniable that we're the best. And, the next year for me, especially, is going to look like me taking a lot of the middle of my day in between sessions and working on sponsorships for fighters, media for fighters, all that kind of stuff. Because when I did it for my career, I had 10 years of advertising and marketing background. I was in a direct mail company. We dealt with national marketing and all that stuff. And I was raised a salesman by my dad. My dad's one of the best salesmen I've ever met in my life. And he always made sure that I was around to watch it go down so that I knew how to do it as well. So when I walked into a business and said, you should sponsor me, well, I'm selling me. And again, you said nobody believes in this more than I do.
Right.
So it's an easy sell, and the fact that I know everybody in the Valley made it really easy to just go in and say, hey, you want to help me with my career? These guys, I don't think they feel comfortable doing it. So if I could just take that same sales mentality and just do it for them,
right,
I'm going to. I'd like to. I always set out for my career. I said I want my shirts for the fights looking like a 5K. I want the whole back to be full of sponsors. I'd have anywhere from 30 to 40 sponsors in a fight, that ranged anywhere from $1,500 to $250. So like, I want to do that for them. I want them to feel the amount of community support that I felt. And that's why the charity work and everything was a major deal to me, and all the things that I've done to make this Valley better. The Valley supported me. They were on my side. They had my back first. The least I could do is do good for everybody else.
Right. Well, so we're at the bottom of the hour, so I just want to recap if anyone's just now joining us. We're talking with Johnny Haught, local celebrity
awesome
here in Wheeling, West Virginia. He is his own greatest fan. 20-year fighter. He has the Ohio Valley MMA gym at Market Plaza in downtown Wheeling. And we've been talking a little bit about your career and the things that you've done for our community. And I guess we've avoided it long enough. You have recently been thrust upon the international stage. And it's it was even Johnny Haught ready for this shit.
No, not even. And I've said it, and I said it to you. I said, I crave attention. I love attention. Everything that I do gets me attention, clear to my hair, the way I talk, the way I walk, the way I dress, everything's about the attention. I was not ready for global attention.
If you remember what I said,
hate.
it was like catching your kid smoking and be like, oh, you want to smoke, huh? All right, you go sit in that corner and smoke the whole pack.
Yeah.
That's what it was like watching you get who was it? The Guardian in the UK, and Demi Lovato and all these people, giving shout outs.
I mean, like when one person called me and said, well, I did an interview with them, and they said, well, I had tried to email you. I said, well, I haven't been in corporate world for 10 years. I said, I don't check my email unless I forgot a password or something.
Well, and I'm wicked proud that you were able to set this Zoom meeting up, brother. Like, good job.
Oh, I was a computer technician for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know technology,
but like I've been head first and I've had gloves on,
So for the folks that don't know, if there's any possibility of that, let's recap a little bit about what happened. So there was a drag show scheduled. It was a private ticketed event at Permane Brothers in the Highlands, correct? Jump in if I'm wrong at any point here. Due to pressure from the surrounding community, Permane Brothers.
Due to pressure from 5 people.
Okay.
Due to pressure from 5 lonely, very bored people with nothing else to do.
They got an entire event canceled.
Exactly. And so once SNS put out that they had to cancel the event, all I was doing was spouting off the mouth and saying, hey, if you want to do it, Me and the fighters will stand guard at the door. Nobody's going to cross that line,
Right.
you
And
know,
and knowing
and
you, I know guaranteed there was zero thought that was put into that post.
none
You were just
whatsoever.
being Johnny. You
Yeah,
were like, well, da, 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 and then went on. And then how
I
long
saw.
after that post was it before you were like, oh shit?
Well, what I had seen, I saw what I thought was an injustice. I saw what I thought was bullying. Okay, these people, these hate-filled people thought that they could just bully somebody into stopping doing what they wanted to do. It wasn't going to hurt anybody. There was no problem with this event. It was a ticketed private event. And if I want to take my daughter to the drag show, and the drag show would be an all ages show, it wouldn't be the adult at a bar show.
Right.
So I had seen that, and I was like, yeah, well, I don't like that. So I was just spouting off the mouth. I sent it out into the ether. Whether anybody got a hold of me or not, I didn't think anything of it.
Right. So you send this out
And
into the world, go about your day, getting, well, probably more punching in the face than getting punched in the face, but nevertheless, how many days was it? How long was it before you were like, wait a second, what? And people started reaching out, and it started to gain that momentum.
I think it was like 2 days. I think
Okay.
it was 2 days, and John Lynch from WTRF, he does their web stuff. He had reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, they won't let me do a broadcast thing about this because they're worried about the backlash, but they're going to let me do a web story, and I think your take on this is what I want to do." And so he asked me a few questions. He was really being kind of superficial with the whole bouncer aspect of it. And so then I threw a paragraph of what I thought about the whole situation. And it was the quote that they used, where I said it was no different than a Broadway show. It's no different than a comedic, show. It's that all mixed together.
Right.
Comedians. I can take my kids to see Jim Gaffigan, but I'm
Right.
not going to I'm not going to take them to see Dennis Leary.
Right. Right.
There are varying ways to do all of these art forms.
Right.
And so once the WTRF story went out, this thing caught fire, and it's a hot button topic right now.
Right.
It's a hot button topic mainly because the politicians want us to pay attention to this and not the other things going on.
Right.
A toxic spill up north, school shootings, all these things that actually matter. This is election time. They have to give us some nonsense to argue about while they do all the other things.
Right. Right. Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that with the comedians. It makes me think of when Deadpool first came out. It was a rated R comic book movie, and dads are taking their kids to see it, and they're like, oh, this is not a kid movie.
Yeah. Yeah, my son was 12 at the time, and I told him, he was like, am I going to get to go? I said, well, I have to go first.
Yeah.
I said, I've read these comic books. I know what this could be, and if it's what I want it to be, you're not allowed to see that yet. And when we walked in, and about 2 minutes in, and I was like, oh yeah, and then it got about halfway when he met his girl.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, he can't see this.
Right. Jeremy Gates says that Johnny is the real deal. Thanks for joining us, Jeremy.
I believe I went to high school with him.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll chime in here in a second and let us know. But well, it's just really interesting, the whole thing, because I do think you happen to say the right thing at the right time to be roped into this worldwide, or at least international, debate. Jeremy said yes, he did go to high school with you.
Yeah.
You had a class of like 20.
26.
Yeah.
26. Bishop Donahue, big school.
There you go.
But I started just thinking that I could make some change in the valley.
Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, well, maybe we'll make some change in the region, and we'll make West Virginia, at least our part of West Virginia, not look as backwards.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, well, we're getting national attention. And then when I got a call in the morning one time, right after I got a hate call, which I've had a fair amount of those, but directly after this hate call, I had a publication out of London interview me. And I was like, oh my.
Yeah.
This is a lot more than I was expecting to do.
Right.
But again, we can jump off of this and start to make change and start to adopt a progressive mentality, at least in our part of the state.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, there's a big difference between up here and down there.
Right.
And if they don't want to get on board, that's fine. Whatever. We'll make our change from the northern panhandle and try to let it creep down into the state. But we are the laughing stock of the rest of the country.
Right.
They make fun of us. And it's rightfully so. We perpetuate every stereotype we have.
Right.
Clear down to look at our governor. Our governor can't stand long enough to make a speech, and he carries his dog around with him. Follow the fucking guidelines. That's what he says on national TV. You said I had one F-bomb. There it was.
There you go. We decided before we all went live that we were going to keep this PG-13. So Johnny got one F-bomb, and there he just used it.
And I used it well.
I think that there are really great weird people throughout Appalachia. I think that Appalachia is really weird, and that's one of the things that makes it great. But I also think that there are a lot of people who have bought the line that they are threatened. And they're buying that line from the very people that are threatening them. And just as it ever was when the Irish immigrants were pitted against the Italian immigrants, or the blacks have been pitted against the whites, or vice versa, like those inner struggles keep us from looking at what's really going on at a higher level, and keep us wasting energy that could be applied probably a little more usefully, if that makes sense.
Well, and through this entire experience, all the hate, all the love, all the attention, everything, I have found that we are more together than we all are
Right.
apart. There's 90% of us are head down, just trying to have a happy life, trying to get through, trying to make sure our kids have a happy life, the people around us have a happy life. And then we've got fringes, 5% and 5% on both sides, that just happen to be the loudest people.
Right.
That's really what it is. I've had 99% just everybody of every kind of walk of life tell me how great this thing is.
Yeah.
But then I also get calls where I'm called the F word, and not the fun one. So like there, but that's a very small amount of the people.
Right.
That's what we have to look at. We have to understand that we are more alike than we are different.
Right. Well, and that's something that I've learned in the travels that I've got to do. I know you've been able to go some really cool places too, and you see that, especially when you travel internationally, how similar we really all are. And we really, like you said, just want to get through our day. We want to be able to have relatively comfortable existence, and love our family and have some fun and do our work, and that's it. It's not what all the fringes want us to hear, but I think it's important to remember that the revolution in this country was started by an active minority, not a majority of people. So you got to be careful that those of us who are just trying to get through our days and live happy lives, we sometimes need to step up to the plate a little bit, like you've done.
Well, they've done pissed me off. Like they do not understand what they've awakened. 2020 happened, quarantine happened, my missions went to zero. Before, I was raising thousands and thousands of dollars for charities. Every charity that asked me to do something, I did it. I went to events nonstop. I was busier than I needed to be, and I would still say yes to everything, which that's just my mentality. I had laid dormant for a couple years.
Yeah.
And this whole thing, like, I got thrust into this, and I was not prepared for this. And at a point in time, I thought, would I go back and not do it? And I was questioning that. But I got a few different situations where, once I posted that I would help bounce at the event, some people sent me screenshots of the people that had got the thing shut down, congratulating each other on good work, and all that stuff online. And I was like, oh, we can't have that. That's not okay. You guys think that you can just do this to people from now on, and then we're going to let it go on. And I happen to be the kind of guy that could step up to people.
Yeah.
And it was a situation where now they've got me on the mission. This thing's going to happen. It's going to happen, and there's not going to stop it. We will be ever more prepared. We'll be more prepared than anybody that's ever done this before.
Well,
Because I know they just did one in Ohio where there was like 4 hours of protesting, and there was Nazis and all kinds of stuff. I promise you that we will make sure that we can guard against that.
Yeah.
They think that they're the only ones that can be scary, and yeah, I consider myself a liberal, but I'm scary. Come call me a snowflake and see how that goes for you.
Now, do you worry that your attitude and the way that you treat this could sway people on the fringes to go away from the message that you're trying to?
Quite honestly, I've had people that I was completely surprised where they came to me and they were like, yeah, I'm completely behind you. I think what you're doing is right.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about freedom in this country, it's everybody's freedoms. It's not just the freedoms that you think should happen. It's everybody's freedoms, even the ones you don't agree with.
Right.
As long as they don't hurt anybody and they don't hurt you, you should stay the hell out of it.
Right.
Right. I'm not, and again, I'm completely anti-bullying from the top down, and this was a bullying situation. So I'll step up, and I just figured when I stepped up that I could take some of the hate off of the drag performers and the business that was going to have it and all that stuff, because I can handle it. If you want to come to me and tell me you have a problem, 2711th Street, Market Plaza, Wheeling, West Virginia. My address, my schedule, and my phone number is public information. If you really want to talk, come down and talk to me.
Now, I know people have called you, most of them from out of state area codes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, the balls get bigger the farther away they are.
Now, has anyone come down to the gym?
No. 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 Like that one, that'd be really stupid. Two, that would be really stupid. There's no two to it. That would just be dumb. Because one, you're running into me. Two, you're probably going to walk into a whole room full of fighters.
Right.
And that's not a good scene.
Richard just chimed in and said they wouldn't even try it.
Richard Violet?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. He's had enough of these right hands to know.
Yeah. Now I do feel like, I guess I feel like it's my responsibility to point out that from the people who are against this, I don't know. I guess their belief is that it is dangerous in some way. What I have a hard time understanding is how they see it as dangerous. It's just like
I bet people not one of them is called a Sunday school teacher at Catholic Mass. I bet you not one of them is called a Catholic church and complain. And that's proven. That happens all the time. We all know it. We all walk through life just understanding that's a given. Okay, nobody has a problem with that. Zero drag stars are touching kids. Okay, so where are you coming with this?
Right.
They come from a form of ignorance in which you could ask them all. I watched a guy in Tennessee that was running the legislation against drag and against trans. They asked him, they said, "You ever been to a drag show?" He said, "No, I would never go." Well, then how the hell do you know what goes on?
Right.
How do you know that that's dangerous for anybody?
Well, and that is a really interesting source of rhetoric that, these messages are getting put out there and propagated, that it is, dangerous and that it is, grooming kids and all this sort of thing. And it would be, someone smarter than me, it would be interesting to see them track that back, because I'm sure this day and age, you can find some of the original people who are saying that sort of thing and starting that sort of message.
Well, it's crazy to me to think that we can't just. What's wrong with a guy dressing up in fabulous dresses and putting on the best makeup and having like $100,000 wigs and then lip sync and share.
Right.
Like, is that scary? Really? Like,
Well, I mean, I love the aspect of just being anti-bullying about it in general, you know, and like I think if you're not into it, if you don't agree with it, then don't go. Just
right,
don't go.
right.
You can
And
stay home.
I've had 100 people that said, yeah, it's not my thing. You
Yeah,
wouldn't catch
no
me dead.
problem.
I wouldn't be caught dead there.
Right.
But I do agree with people's rights to do it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I agree that if you bought the ticket and you wanted to go, that you should be allowed to go. How is that? How are we arguing over that?
Right.
We're only arguing over that because there are other things they want us to ignore.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And at no point is anyone saying, no, I really think that the drag queen should be grooming children to do illicit things. Like no one's saying that. We're saying let them dress up, let them have a good time, because it is absolutely fabulous.
Well,
and
now we're getting legislation in states where it's becoming dangerous. It's
right.
you know, the same group that wants less government wants more control by the government.
Right.
Makes no sense whatsoever. Now we're getting dangerously close to a trans person not being allowed to dress in their chosen outfits in front of their own children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
We start crossing lines like that, the same people that are arguing this are going to see that it's going to infringe on their rights as well. And then it'll be up in arms.
Right.
How dare they?
Right.
You know, I said it before, you know, the people that say don't tread on me are doing an awful lot of treading right now.
Yeah, it's interesting how that shoe fits on the other foot, and even when that shoe's a 9-inch pump.
That's a size 13. I always said I'd love to have shoes like that, but they won't make them in my size. But apparently they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I've been looking for a pair for my Frankenfurter Halloween costume.
Oh my God. You better shave your legs.
Well, you've seen my butt. You know how hairy it is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so we were supposed to be doing this edition of Friday Night on a Sunday after Johnny and I got tattooed together all day long, and we had to move that because your wife had to go win a championship today.
Well, yeah, my wife winning her ECWHL championship was a big deal. Plus, we found when we went and got tattooed the last time that we were in no shape to be on a podcast directly after.
That was a serious concern. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we still need to stay diplomatic.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot to be said for connecting with people and trying to find that middle ground and sway them more towards the just side of things. You know, and that's one of the things I love about what I do with food is that it cuts through all of that. You know, I'm very happy that I have all walks of life eat at my restaurant, and they are all welcome. I want it to be a true safe space where if you are on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle, if you're of this religion or that religion or no religion, no matter where you come from, you can come enjoy this food, and it cuts through all of that, and you can say, oh shit, that's a tasty burger.
Yeah. You just want to make people happy.
Right.
You just, you know, that at the end of the day, black, white, red, brown, you know, right, left, doesn't matter. You're just trying to make people happy. And again, right, left, they create these separations, but
Right.
we all tend to sway towards the middle,
Right,
towards the same thing.
right. And what's that internet meme about them both being the wings on the same bird?
Yes.
I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind too. Daniel Finsley just chimed in. He said this is one of the best conversations he's heard in a long time. We're a couple of his all-time favorites. What's that?
He doesn't talk to many people.
I'm bringing Daniel on here the first weekend of April. You can watch Daniel join us here on Friday Night on a Sunday.
Oh, that'll be fun.
But we're winding down out of time now, so I do want to say that next weekend we'll be celebrating my fiance Amanda's birthday, and she will be my guest on Friday Night on a Sunday, and we're going to talk about what it's like being married or almost married to a chef and entrepreneur. So
Oh,
that'll probably be an
I
even more
can't
lively
wait to hear about
conversation than
all
this one.
that. Yeah, I can't wait to hear that.
Yep.
I want unfiltered too.
I'm
I
sure it
want her
will
to
be.
let it go.
Well, you've met Amanda. She doesn't filter. Oh, and my
Yeah.
mom just chimed in. Thanks, guys. I'll be asking my mom to come on for Mother's Day because, I'm asking
Oh,
everybody. I want to talk to the people that I work with on a regular basis, that I interact with. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the culinary industry, but people that I see all the time that I could sit back and have a good conversation with. So I asked my mom if she would join us for Mother's Day. And if Amanda would join us next week for her birthday.
well, I think that you could really, it could be food centric, but I think that, talking with different people from different walks of life through the whole thing, people that and just finding out more about the people that live around us.
Right.
Again, we're all head down, work, home, kids, home, we don't get to see as much of each other as we need to, and we don't get to see people or hear people outside of our own echo chambers.
Right.
So, and that's a very important thing, because again, before this, I was head down again. I didn't have any missions. I wasn't working real hard on anything outside of my fighters in my gym, my kids, my wife, my house, my dogs. I was,
Right.
in that echo
Right.
chamber, and
Right.
I got depressed because of it, because the things you see in media, the things you see in the news aren't exactly positive.
Right. Right.
But if you go outside and you look around, the people we live around, the valley that we live in, and the community that we have is a pretty nice one.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I'll never forget. Oh, I had a moment before I moved out west the last time, which I came home from 10 years ago now, driving up Route 2. It was a like late summer morning, and the fog was down heavy in the river valley, and I was just like, man, this place is freaking beautiful. And you just don't think about it because you see it day in and day out, and when you get stuck in your daily rut, you tend to forget. And if you can just broaden your perspective a little bit and see what the greatness that you really are in, it's really healthy for you. It helps you appreciate things a lot more, and I think it helps you get through your life a little bit better too. And that's one of the
Well,
reasons I
you
think
need
traveling is
that.
so important.
You need it to rejuvenate you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really do. And sometimes you need to step out of your comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and go to different atmospheres.
Right.
Even if you stay in the valley, you need to go be around people that are happy, working forward progressively towards something.
Right.
And that's the great thing about the gym, is we all have goals.
Right.
There are goals in front of us, and
Well.
my goals have turned into other people's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's my mission to make sure that these guys have the best careers that they can have.
Well, I think echo chamber is a really great way to put it too. When you are in your daily routine and you're seeing the same people every day, the same sights, and you never really break out of that, it gets deafening.
Well, and your look at the outside world through social media and media in general,
right.
and they're not going to give you anything but terrible news.
Right.
That clickbait is terrible news.
Right. Yep.
It's never this puppy was, saved.
Right.
It's
Right.
always these people are terrible and this is why they're going to come kill you and your kids.
Right.
It's the echo chambers that exist online are dangerous.
Right.
If that's where you get all your information, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the problem that we have is nobody researches anything.
Yeah.
The news says it and you take it as gospel. Social media says it, you take it as gospel. Quite honestly, if you just did some minor research, you'd find out real stories.
Well, I think we've all been prey to believing something is true when we read it because it jives with what we want it to be.
I believe it because it's on the internet.
Well, I'm pretty
You
good
know?
at vetting that stuff and making sure, things are accurate before I repost or whatever, but I still get caught every once in a while. And I'm like, oh, I just really wanted that to be the case. And I shared it, and now I got to eat some crow because I was wrong.
Yeah,
And I think,
but you won't do that 90% of the time.
right.
You've got people's grandparents that automatically share stuff whether they know what's going on or not. And that perpetuates more and more of that cycle of negativity.
Right.
And that's what the media outlets see. They say, well, this is what people want. This is what we're going to give them. If they, when CNN went to 24 hours a day, they had to start coming up with something to scare you.
Well, same as it ever was. I mean, if it bleeds, it leads. I don't know how long we've been saying that, but we've been saying it for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I encourage everyone, after this all wraps up, to step outside, look up into the sky, and take a deep fucking breath and realize that we're all going to die, and we might as well do the best we can while we're here.
That's it. Oh, and hey, I'm going to drop something on you.
Yeah.
I just got asked by Ron Scott Jr. and the Miracle League to do the lip sync battle this year.
Oh, nice.
So look out for that, because this is going to be ostentatious.
Oh my. All right. So what are we talking, Vagabond Chef and drag here or what?
I don't know. We might all end up in drag in this situation.
If you want to do a little Robert Palmer action, I will definitely be one of your backup.
Oh my goodness. I was thinking more of a Richard Cheese version of Baby Got Back. So, you better find those 9-inch heels.
Oh man. Well, it won't be the first time. I joined Amanda's mom, Wendy Anderson, on stage last year when she did Country Roads, and I went out in a leather fringe jumpsuit with my chef hat on and waved a West Virginia flag around for 2.5 extremely long minutes.
All you were missing was the assless chaps.
I wore that when I did Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, well, there you go.
And just so you know, all chaps are assless by definition.
I've set you up for that. So easy. I said it, and I was like, he's gonna call me out.
Stacy asked if you know when the lip sync battle will be. Is that this coming one? Is it be this fall?
Yeah, it's the one that's coming this year. I think they do it in the fall.
I think it is in the
fall. He just stopped by. Every charity organization in this valley knows if they ask me to do something, I won't even ask what it is. I'll just say, Ron came in and said, I got to ask you to do something. I said, my answer is yes.
Yeah.
Before he even asked. But
so
I've been looking.
Have you done Dancing with the Stars yet?
I did Dancing with the Stars twice.
Okay, I figured.
I competed one year, and then the next year they had a group of 5 past male stars do a routine.
Nice.
That is how I met my wife.
Oh, really?
Because my wife was backstage working for Augusta Levy then, and I was there, and one of my friends was talking me up, trying to get me to go to Generations afterwards. And I was like, I don't want to go to Generations. He goes, well, it's the after party. You have to go. Well, we had enough Patron backstage to where I was like, yeah, I'll go to Generations. So we went, and I complimented her hair, found out she worked at Augusta Levy, asked her to introduce me to all her coworkers, because I'd done multiple events for them, but I'd never met people working there. So I went over, met them, and then I went on my way. And, one thing led to another. I saw her again the next week. And I wanted to ask her out before, but I didn't have any other way than, to go on social media and get in her DMs. And I'm too old for that. I will not say that I'm too old for anything, but I'm too old for that shit. And
that's funny.
I was walking through Generations again for the second week in a row, because they had a 90s cover band and my friends wanted me to go. And I was walking to the bathroom, and I stopped dead as soon as I saw her out of the corner of my eye, turned around, walked up to her. I said, I'm not the kind of person that DMs somebody, but since you're here, can I text you tomorrow? And she said, yeah. I said, you want to do a shot? We did a shot. I went on my way.
Nice.
And by leaving it like that, she was, I won her over, because I didn't do the regular guy thing and follow her around all night. I just went back to my group of friends, and we talked the next day, and we had plans to meet the next weekend, and we didn't even make it till Wednesday. And she's been mine ever since.
Well, congratulations on that. Married for
a little over a year. Well,
yeah.
About a year and a half now.
Yeah.
We got married on Halloween. You were the best man, so you should know.
I was Fat Johnny.
dressed up as me in a
If I'm
very tiny shirt.
nobody protested that.
Yeah, if you're going to protest something, that would have been one.
And I made sure that shirt was one size too small, and my
Yeah,
muffin top was out.
She gave you two different shirts of mine, and one was your size, and one was definitely not.
One was not your, yeah, one was not my
Yep,
size.
that's the one you wore.
Rainbow Mohawk. I had your Weird Al Yankovic coloring book.
It was an amazing best man speech with you dressed like that.
Well, man, it's been awesome talking to you as always. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We still got 13 people listening to us for some reason, so it must be at least somewhat entertaining.
Oh hell, I could have talked for 2 more hours. all you gotta do is let me go.
Oh, I know it. Prime the pump and get out of the way. But it was a really good time. I appreciate everyone joining us. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to next week speaking with my fiance, Amanda Bennett, who will talk a little bit about her career and what it's like being with a chef and entrepreneur. I'm going to wear a cup to this one.
Yeah. Well, hey, one of these days you should have my wife on and ask her what it's like to put up with me 24/7.
That could be its own thing.
You better clear off 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, it was a super good time, man. Maybe we'll have you back on here sometime, or I can have you join in as a third wheel and we can talk to somebody else.
You know, I'm always down.
We'll figure it out. Thanks so much, brother. Love you. I'll see you soon.
Love you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.